Hi there, it's Nicole, and today I have a set of Prayers Embossed Resist greeting cards. This is a set of 12 greeting cards for the Lasting Hearts card drive. And the great thing about this set of greeting cards is they're really simple to make, but with the addition of the distress inks over the embossed greetings and images, they are pretty as well. So you can't get much better than quick and easy and pretty. To create these, I am going to be using the 4-bar Simon Says Stamp note cards, and I'm going to be creating a panel for each of these note cards. So I'm going to use one of the 4-bar small stitched rectangle dies from Lawn Fawn and die cut a whole bunch of these rectangles from watercolor cardstock. Watercolor cardstock is really going to be the key here because I am doing the distress ink and water technique, and you want the paper to really stand up to that, all of the ink and the water. I'm going to use a powder tool on all of these rectangles and then stamp the Prayers greeting from the Hero Arts and Simon Says stamp set and coordinating die collection. I'm only going to be using the stamps actually from that here today. And I'm going to stamp the greetings on all of these rectangles. And my greeting kind of stuck to my gift pad, or my ink pad rather. So I'm going to have to grab that one more time. I am using Versamark ink, and then I will stamp the greeting on each of the note cards. To mix it up just a little bit and add some interest, I'm going to use a combination of 2 different greetings. All of the greetings are going to use the word prayers, and then I'll use a couple of the little additional phrases to go with that word from that stamp set. I love that you can create all kinds of different prayer type greetings with this stamp set. Really customize it for who you're sending it to. I sprinkled on some white embossing powder there just so I can see where I've already been. And I'm going to go ahead and do a whole bunch of these at once, do all the stamping, add the embossing powder, and then move on to heat embossing them. I'll just do a couple more here. This is the other greeting that I'm using. Instead of being up above the word prayers, this one's going to be down below it. Go ahead and add my embossing powder. I like to use these dishes, these little plastic storage containers and little spoons to apply my embossing powder. Now, once I have all of my greetings heat embossed, I'm going to use the Misty stamping tool to do the rest of my stamping. I definitely could have done this for the greeting as well. I hadn't really thought of it until I stamped the greeting and realized I wanted to use some of the hearts from the Prayers stamp set and decided it would be so much easier to add all of those hearts to my project and use the Misty to stamp them in the same position for all 12 note cards. So that made it much, much more easy. So just like with the greeting, I'm going to just place those in here, ink up the hearts every time with the Versamark ink, shut the cover to ink them, then apply my white embossing powder and heat set that. And one of my little hearts went flying off, so I had to figure out where that went again. Even with the greeting, the additional smaller greeting in a different position, the way I put the hearts on this, on the Misty, they're going to stamp in the exact same place. I didn't have to adjust any of those, which is great. Once everything is stamped and heat embossed with the white embossing powder, I am ready to apply the distress inks over the embossing or over this whole panel to add some color. For my first set of cards, I am using Peacock Feathers Distress Ink, Cracked Pistachio, and Twisted Citron. And I'm doing it kind of in a diagonal where in the upper left corner area is the Peacock Feathers, through the middle is Cracked Pistachio, and then that bottom right corner is the Twisted Citron. And I'm just going to work to make sure I blend those colors together. Now you can see my finger marks are getting into the ink. I kind of purposely left that in here this time because most of the time I like to use a scrap piece of paper. This is going to protect not only the work surface but my fingers from the ink, and that way you won't get any of those finger marks in your project. I'm going to go ahead and do 4 of my cards with this color combination. And you could definitely do all of the cards with the same color combination, or you could make all of the cards different with 12 different color combinations, or however many note cards you're making. I just chose to go ahead and break it up into 3 different color combinations, so 4 cards with each color combination. I want a seamless transition from each color for that really pretty ombre effect, so I'm making sure to blend each color really well into the previous color. Once all of that's done, I'm going to take the Distress Sprayer. It is great and a little bit different than the Mini Mister. The Mini Mister is going to give that really fine, nice mist, kind of even mist, I guess I want to say. The Mini Mister, if you just pull the trigger slightly back, it's going to give those big water droplets, which gives a really fun, different effect. I let the ink sit for probably about 30 seconds and then picked it up with a dry paper towel. If there were too many or any areas that it picked up way too much of the water, or the ink rather, I went back in with my ink blending tools and applied a little bit more ink. One last thing is you're going to want to make sure and buff all of those embossed areas really well with a dry paper towel, so that they're nice and crisp and white. You can also go back in and add your Distress Sprayer if you maybe added too much ink back in and you want to add some more distressing. Then I'm simply going to set all of those aside to air dry and move on to my next color combination. I'm going to use Blueprint Sketch, Peacock Feathers, and Tumbled Glass for this one. And you definitely don't have to use 3 colors of ink. You could maybe only do 2. You could do 1 even. That would be pretty as well, especially with the Distress water. It gives a great distress look just like that. You could add more colors if you wanted to. There's so many different ways to use the distress inks that are so fun with this technique. When you first lay down the colors, especially with this color combination, you can see that they need to be blended together much more before you go any further. I like to lay down all of my colors first and then go back and make sure I'm blending each color really well into the next. So that top left corner is going to be the Blueprint Sketch, the middle is Peacock Feathers, and the bottom right corner is Tumbled Glass. And I'll make sure and blend those colors really well, one right into the other. Do that for 4 of the panels. Again, I kind of kept to doing 2 at a time as I did this. Once I have all 4 of those panels colored in, I'm going to go ahead and grab my Distress Sprayer, spritz these all with water, let it sit for about 30 seconds, and then just blot that dry with a dry paper towel, and then go over all of the embossing again and buff that so any of the ink that is sitting on top of that embossed area gets buffed off. And that's really you can see how nice and bright and white the embossed greeting is once you buff off any of that excess ink. I'll do that for all 4, and I'll move on to my last color combination. I had stuck with kind of more soft blues and greens for those first 8 cards. I decided to go a little bit brighter here. This is one of my new favorite color combinations. It's the Abandoned Coral, which is going to be in the upper left corner of this panel. And then through the middle, I'm going to use Carved Pumpkin, and then in the bottom right corner, Squeezed Lemonade. I just love how these colors look together. So these are definitely a little bit brighter. I'll go back in with my Abandoned Coral and blend that into the Carved Pumpkin ink, which really is a great pumpkin orange ink. And then the Squeezed Lemonade in that bottom corner, blend that into the Carved Pumpkin really well. And then I will do exactly like I did for the other 2 combinations. I'm going to spritz these with water from the Distress Sprayer. Let it sit for about 30 seconds. Guess I needed to blend this a little bit more first. Now I'm ready to go ahead and spritz that with water from the Distress sprayer. And you can see you definitely get some bigger water droplets with that. Go ahead and blot all of these dry and then buff all of the embossing really well. Now I let mine air dry after this step to make sure they were really good and dry and the ink was set. You could definitely hit them with a heat tool if you wanted to speed up the drying process. I did all of this in one day and then I came back like a day or two later and attached all of these to the 4-bar note cards from Simon Says Stamp. These are note cards that are already sized to the 4-bar size. So all you have to do is fold them in half. I like to use the Teflon bone folder to score them really nice and cleanly. And then I'm attaching all of my watercolor panels with a nice strong adhesive like the Glue Glider Pro. And I will do this for all of my cards. Now I left them as is. You could definitely go ahead and add some sequins or enamel dots or anything like that if you wanted to. I thought that they looked so pretty the way they were, and it's just a nice, simple, classic look. So here's another look at all of the finished note cards. That great distressing, and then the nice bright white embossed greetings. Thanks for watching this video showcasing the Embossed Resist Prayers greeting cards. The supplies I've used to create these cards are listed and linked below the video on YouTube. Please subscribe for weekly card making and stamping videos. Here are a couple more videos showcasing distress ink techniques that you may like. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.